AskReddit by Acamp. What movie is so good you'd recommend it to all your friends, but so emotionally traumatic that you'll never watch it again? Hotel Rwanda fits. Some 10 years ago, I was fortunate enough to hear Paul Rusesabagina speak and to shake his hand. It was one of the most humbling, human experiences of my life. He has now been in prison and tortured for more than 9 years. Arriving story %3 3D 77,748,884. If anyone knows a way to help, please share. I'll give the same answer every time this comes up. Mary and Max. Yes. Thank you. I've never known anyone who knows this movie. It's such a beautiful movie and so damn sad. I've recommended it to lots of people but it's hard to find. The Hunt, 2012. A Danish film by Thomas Vinterberg starring Mads Mikkelsen. That fucking movie. Things it shows. Children should not be exposed to pornography. Children who are being questioned to see if they were abused should only have that questioning done by a specially trained expert and possibly with potentially a trained advocate present, because it's too easy to lead them to a conclusion they think the questioner wants to hear, especially if they think they are in trouble. Note: I edited this due to the several very good points several people said about parents shouldn't be present. Some people are also saying best practice is one-on-one with that trained forensic questioner. Basically everyone in that story ended up fucked up. Boys Don't Cry. It made me depressed for days. I saw that on a first date. We drove home in complete silence. Threads. https://www.imdb.com/tt0090163/question_ref_fn_al_tt_1 closed bracket. Made in 1984, it's a harrowing depiction of major nuclear exchange between the United States and the Soviet Union. It is incredibly bleak and tragic, the most effective representation of the horrors of nuclear war that I've ever seen. Everyone should watch it once, in my opinion. But no one needs to see it twice. Threads is absolutely harrowing to watch, but a very powerful film. I think the best part of Threads for me, or worst as it might be, is that it is filmed and set in my home city, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, makes it even more effective. Dancer in the Dark. Amazing performance by Bjork and brutally sad. I bought a copy of the DVD after seeing the movie because I loved it so much. I lent the disc to several friends and looked at it many times myself, but could just never summon the energy to watch it again. I was on one of my first few dates with a woman I ended up dating for years, and I decided to rent this movie. I thought I would shed a few silent tears and show my sensitive side. I ended up ugly crying uncontrollably by the end. Like full snot flowing, gasping for breath. She was unfazed and concerned for me. The Iron Giant would have been a better choice. Eta, thank you Reddit for hearing my story. Today was complicated for me and I appreciate the uplift. I check out Reddit when I'm anxious and it has been silly and joyous feeling your commiseration. Keep being kind, you generous badasses. -42-year-old dude who loves you all. Elephant. The 2003 Gus Van Sant film, not the Disney nature doc. It takes place in the fictional Watt High School, in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon, and chronicles the events surrounding a school shooting, based in part on the 1999 Columbine High School massacre. The film stars mostly new and non-professional actors, which gives it an even greater sense of realism. What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Deleted. Life is Beautiful. This movie is unspeakably tragic, but it's also profoundly beautiful. The love that the family had for each other gets me every time. Roberto Benigni was perfection in this role. The Road. Watched it when it first came out. Loved it. Can't put myself through it again though. It's so hard going and heartbreaking. I read the book and loved it. I'm never reading it again or watching the film. We need to talk about Kevin. That was a truly visceral experience. Truth story, I was working at Kmart a while back. There was an incident in the paper where a man had murdered someone not too far from where I lived. His last name, incidentally, was Christmas. I only mentioned that because maybe a week or two later I rang up a woman who paid with a check. I had to see her ID and I saw her last name was Christmas. And I said something along the lines of, "You must be Merry, you know, just trying to be friendly." And she says, "Not really, since my son went to jail for murder." I hadn't made the connection until she said it. Turns out she had been getting all kinds of shit from neighbors and such. I told her I was sorry, and while my follow-up remark of, "There's one in every family," probably wasn't the most tactful, she appreciated the sympathy. We Need to Talk About Kevin came out much later, and when I saw the plot of the film, it reminded me of that event. Leaving Las Vegas. Nicolas Cage is amazing in it, won an Oscar for it, but as a recovered alcoholic, that film hits way too close to home. Good film though. Yeah, I remember catching it on TV really late at night one weekend, and I stopped to watch it hoping for it to be a Nick Cage film that I could laugh about later. My god, there was no laughing. I had no idea Nick Cage could play in a drama so well. Melancholia. Really disturbing. Don't think I've ever really gotten over it. Watched this during lockdown and hit a new low. Stand By Me. The last line gets me thinking every time. I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Jesus, does anyone? I read the book version of this. The Body by Stephen King. Gets me. The Pianist. I can't bring myself to watch it again. The anger and hopelessness I felt for that man and those people is beyond compare. My grade 10 teacher forced the entire class to watch that during history and amp. All I remember is majority of the class sobbing, crying. It was so sad, and every single scene in that movie is engraved into my head. Another similar movie that traumatized me was The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. Holy. Once Were Warriors. I love this very hard to watch movie so much. I've recommended this one so many times and have a copy I probably play once every 4 or 5 years. It's so good. Full Metal Jacket. I watched the very first bit of it when I was in officer training and thought it was a comedy. A few months later I sat down and watched the whole thing. It's not a comedy. I can, and have, watched the first half in a time. That second half though, oof. HBO's Chernobyl miniseries. As what is essentially a horror movie, it works incredibly well. Except that it all happened in real life, and radiation is fucking terrifying. Jared Harris was fucking amazing in Chernobyl. What Dreams May Come. It's the most beautiful movie and I think everyone should watch it at least once, but I haven't been able to bring myself to watch it since Robin Williams died. I actually haven't watched anything he's in since he died. Came Here for This. I watched this movie with my family shortly after my older brother died, suicide. The birthday before his passing, my younger brother and I gifted him a necklace engraved with "If you're going through hell, keep going," and a note about how we will stand by his side through anything. This movie spoke to me so much and I will always recommend it even though I haven't been able to bring myself to watch it since. For anyone who needs to hear this, you are loved and you are not a burden. Pan's Labyrinth. I thought I was going in to see a cool fantasy flick. And it turned out to be a movie dealing with trauma, abuse, and coping mechanisms. Still a great film, but so gut-wrenching. I worked in a video rental store when that movie came out. Luckily I watched it right away because the number of people who were coming in to rent it for young children was shocking. I felt like a broken record repeating, this is not a fairy tale for children, please don't let your 6-year-old watch this. Dear Zachary, hands down. However, I've seen it 4 times. I scrolled down just to find this. It's my answer to this question every time. Can't even console yourself with it being just a movie. American History X. Dude, the fucking curb stomp is still clear in my mind and it's been years. Old Boy, the Korean 2003 one. Watch this with a girl on a Netflix and chill date cause we'd both heard good things, but had no idea what it was about. There was no chill, and no second date. Bridge to Terabithia. My childhood literally ended after finishing that movie. The boy in the striped pajamas. Came here to say this. This movie, no words. Still haunts me. Still fucks me up, takes me back there, breaks my heart. They hired the lead actor, Asa Butterfield, for his innocence. He knew nothing about the Holocaust. They didn't tell him anything about the Holocaust or the gist of the story. He was just playing a little boy who played with another little boy through a fence. They maintained that brilliant innocence of his throughout the movie. That's what makes the ending of this movie just so very soul-wrenching. I'm still so very moved by this film. Schindler's List. This comment has been removed in response to Reddit's decision to increase API costs and price out third-party apps. Requiem for a Dream. Watched this without knowing much about it with my roommate's whole family, to the end. Never thought that scene would end. Manchester by the Sea all day. His face when the ex walks into the funeral too. He's unemotional, and yet, you can sense the emotion somehow. The Mist. That fucking ending. My favorite bit of trivia about that film is when Stephen King watched the ending, he apparently said that he wished he had thought of it. Kids, 1995. I watched this when I was probably around 14 or so, and it fucked me up. That scene where the main girl walks in on her ex taking that young girl's virginity still makes my stomach tie up in knots. You can see just how much the girl he's with is not enjoying it, and he's just pounding away not giving one single shit, and you already know what a humongous piece of shit he is and that he really doesn't care about any of this, other than getting off. Top it off with what we already know about what he has, and it's just, so fucking depressing. Who else is scrolling for good movie recommendations? Saved. I love a good bad mood. The Grave of the Fireflies. I'm never, ever, gonna watch that shit again. It's from Studio Ghibli, the same from Spirited Away, Sent to Chihiro. An absolute masterpiece for sure, but don't expect to find happy little creatures in it. Unfun fact. Godf was originally released as a double feature with My Neighbor Totoro. Even less fun, they played in the bad order. Not a movie, but there is no way I can watch BoJack Horseman again. That's too much, man. I binged the entire series in a very short period of time and felt almost, maybe not traumatized, but like I was stumbling out of this dark tunnel, when it was over. Disoriented and uncomfortable because it got too much inside my own head. Great show. Will never watch again. Hachi, A Dog's Tale. Like just knowing it happened brings me so much pain. Don't do it. I love this movie but I cried from 20 minutes in, all the way through, and a good freaking hour after too. Damn broke my heart. Wind River. I've watched it more than once, but I take a bathroom break during the scene. I just don't have the emotional armor to sit through that particular type of violence. My Girl. I've watched that movie so many times but I still cry every time she says he can't see without his glasses. Green Mile. Obligatory fuck Percy. Philadelphia. Sobbed like a little baby. Tom Hanks is so good and it's such a painful look into how truly horrific the AIDS crisis was in the US. I remember watching this movie in high school. I heard about the AIDS crisis and how many deaths there were, but seeing it through the life of a character who once had so much, only to slowly lose it all due to AIDS, and Enzel's character putting aside his personal beliefs for his client after seeing its effects on him only made it more sad. Elephant. Directed by Gus Van Sant. Spoilers below. The film is, in part, based around the idea of what would have happened if the Columbine boys were able to carry out their plans to the fullest extent. Extremely well put together film and it shook me to my core 10/10, will never watch again. The thing I found so powerful about Elephant is how banal it was. Those long single take shots, the lack of soundtrack. There are none of the traditional cinema tricks to guide your emotions or compress time or heighten tension. It's just this is how it would be in real life. This is how pointless and stupid and brutal a school shooting is. Longtime companion about the beginning of the AIDS pandemic. From the absolute joy of the gay liberation movement to the tragic deaths of so many young people. The ending is heartbreaking. I can't even think about it without crying. Martyrs. The original. https://m.imdb.com/title/tt10292344/ Errors Ahead 1978, truly the most effective psychological horror film I have ever seen. Moonlight. It was so realistic to my life that it made me uncomfortable. I held off on Moonlight for years because I assumed it was going to be one of those films that's great but makes you feel like crap afterwards. Watched it a few months ago and I was absolutely blown away. So goddamn beautiful. Definitely not uplifting but held more hope than I was expecting. I wish I had watched it sooner. The Land Before Time. For a kids movie it's so emotionally crushing right from the get-go, and then you have the tragic murder of the 10-year-old voice actress for Ducky. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Judith_Barcy . That just adds more sadness to that film. That was one of the darkest kids movies, and one of my favorites growing up. Mysterious Skin. It's about child abuse and PTSD. This movie is incredibly, but I had to watch it in the span of 3-4 days. No violence shown but everything is suggested. Edit. I was talking about the children, but many comments reminded me that there is violence. So be careful if you ever wanna watch it. Pay It Forward. Such a great movie and taught me so many life lessons, but I seriously can't watch it to this day. Jojo Rabbit. It made me cry and that's very rare for me. When the Wind Blows. This is depression in film form. It centers on the blogs a retired couple living in the countryside during the height of the Cold War and in the aftermath of nuclear war. Throughout the movie you learn about them and you get very emotionally attached to them. Well, I did. By the time you get to the end of the film your heart will break. No, I won't spoil the ending. Beyond just the film's plot, it also works as a type of commentary on the old Protect and Survive pamphlets and films that were produced back then. The film itself is produced via a mixture of animation methods. Stop motion and cel shaded are the primary ones used, but there are a few others used in minor parts. The soundtrack is also headlined by the inimitable David Bowie singing the film's theme. That ending. Yeah, just depression in film form to me. Dead Poets Society. It hit me hard, mate. I tried watching it again recently. I saw it in school when I was younger, and dude. Robin Williams is so good, but it makes me too sad to watch it.